Marshall, how are you? Thank you for joining. Very
Oh,
excited to have you here today.
very happy to be here.
And hello to all of our attendees. I know they're still coming in. If you don't know me yet, I'm Ron Akshet, the CEO and founder of Lit Videobooks. Lit makes reading best-selling business and leadership books as enjoyable and entertaining as watching a movie or a short documentary. If you want more information, stay tuned until the end of the chat. Right now, we're looking forward to what I know will be a great conversation with Marshall Goldsmith on elevating leadership skills and breaking barriers. We're going to save the last 15 minutes or so for Q&A. And you can pre-ask your questions in the Slido link we just popped into the chat. You can also upvote any questions that you really like so that we know which ones to ask during the Q&A session. Marshall, for over a decade, you've been known as one of the world's leading executive coaches by Thinkers 50, Fast Company, Inc. magazine. You're a trusted advisor to hundreds of CEOs, and you work with some of the world's top leaders. Could you share a bit about your journey in this career choice and what really inspired you to focus on leadership coaching and development?
Well, I've been very, very fortunate. I was brought up very poor, low income, low education environment, went to undergrad school, a little engineering school, and then kind of had a bad attitude, barely graduated, but last year I went back and gave the commencement speech and got an honorary Ph.D. So I said, let's hear it from the bottom of the class. You never know here. Then I got an MBA and a PhD, and I was a college professor. And then I got into this field. I met a very famous man named Dr. Paul Hersey. He and Ken Blanchard invented situational leadership, and he was kind enough to let me sit into one of his programs. And I said, I don't want to be him when I grow up. Guy's great. I said, I'll serve the coffee, sit in the back of the room, do whatever. One day I did it. And one day he got double booked, said, can you ride me? I said, I don't know. He said, I'll pay $1,000 for a day. I was making $15,000 a year. I was brought up very poor. That was 47 years ago. That's a lot of money. I said, sign me up, coach. I did a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. They were incredibly angry when I showed up because I wasn't him. On the other hand, I ended up being ranked first place of all the speakers. And they said, send this guy again. That's how I got into leadership development. And coaching, the same thing. I met the CEO Warren Lambert. He said, this kid working for us, young, smart, dedicated jerk. Be worth a fortune to me if this kid could change his behavior. I said, I like fortunes. Maybe I could help him. He said, I doubt it. I said, I'll work with the kid for a year. If he gets better, pay me. If you don't get better, it's free. He said, sold. There was nothing called coaching. There was no field of coaching. I just kind of made that up. A
Wow,
lot of life is
that's
luck.
that is an incredible story. Thank you to Ken Blanchard.
Yeah, Ken's a
So,
great guy. Paul is no longer alive, but Ken is, just a great, great human being.
it's amazing. And Marcia, you are, treasure trove of knowledge on leadership habits. Marcia, I want to just share one LinkedIn comment that we came across. Someone said, imagine if each person attending today's webinar overcame just one obstacle. Imagine the impact. And so just want to set the tone for the meeting here today. I also want to take that, just one bit further. Um, you know, if you have anything that you want to ask Marshall, please pop into the chat and share something that you learned today or, an aha moment. I think that'd be really valuable. Marshall, in your timeless bestseller, What Got You Here Will Get You There, talk about the 4 success delusions leaders often face. I want to show a clip from the video book that highlights this concept so that our attendees have full context. And then we'll come back to you with a couple of questions on these delusions.
Sure.
John was quickly climbing the corporate ladder.
I'm the 3rd youngest senior executive in my company's history.
But his boss confronted him about the one major flaw he needed to change. He was a horrible listener.
My first thought was, I don't need to change. I'm killing it.
John's hesitancy was because of the success delusion.
What is the success delusion? Well, the success delusion is, I behave this way, I've been successful. I received positive reinforcement for my behavior in the past. Therefore, if I keep behaving this way, I will be successful in the future. The same beliefs that led us to success, these same beliefs, they can also make it very difficult for us to change.
There are 4 key beliefs that contribute to the success delusion. Belief 1 is, I have succeeded.
Well, we all tend to overestimate our contribution to any project. Of all the people I've ever coached, 80% think they're in the top 20%. 70% of us believe we're in the top 10. 98.5% of us think we're in the top half. Successful people are delusional. Yes, we believe we have been successful. We tend to grossly overestimate our own contribution to success.
Belief 2 is, I can succeed. We believe that we're in control and don't see success as luck. The third belief is, I will succeed. We believe we can conquer any problem to achieve success. The fourth belief is, I choose to succeed. We choose to do what we're doing, and our choices are the reason for success.
These beliefs can lead to something called the superstition trap. What is the superstition trap? I behave this way, I am successful, therefore I must be successful because I behave this way. The more successful we become, the more positive reinforcement we get. The more people laugh at our jokes, the more people pretend we're smart, the more successful we become, the less negative feedback we get, and the more likely we are to start believing that everything we do is wonderful. Wrong.
Could not agree more. Marshall, how does it feel to see yourself in the video book again?
Oh, I love it. I love that one. You know, I enjoyed it. It's also fun.
Yeah, it was really, really fun to produce. Before reading your book, I thought, I can succeed and I will succeed. These are, positive affirmations, right? So when do these positive affirmations transition into becoming a trap?
Well, a couple of things. One is in spite of and because of. I am doing what I'm doing. I'm getting great feedback. Therefore, it must be because I'm doing this. Any human or even any animal will replicate behavior that's followed by positive reinforcement. And the more positive reinforcement we get, the more this is true. And the higher up you go, as I said, people laugh at your jokes. They all suck up. They pretend you're so smart. One of the great people I coached over the years, a man named Mike Duke. Mike was CEO of Walmart. And Mike said, I had this joke I told. Everybody loved my joke and laughing. And it was a clean joke, didn't offend anyone. He said, I retired as CEO of Walmart. And I'm in this group, and I tell him my joke. And he said, nobody laughed. And he said, well, they must be grumpy. I'm in another group, tell a joke. Nobody laughed. He said, finally, my wife said, Mike, you idiot. Did you actually believe that joke was funny? We see, when he was CEO of Walmart, that joke was hilarious. He's not the CEO of Walmart. It's not so funny anymore. It's not so funny. So what happens is we keep getting promoted more. Everybody's laughing at the jokes, act like we're funny. And we get this positive reinforcement. People think executives are, out of touch sometimes. Well, why wouldn't they be? You said something, everyone in the room nods their head like you're a genius. You start thinking what I'm saying must be correct. That's why in my job, I give people confidential feedback. They're not used to hearing what everyone really thinks about them. They will tell you this confidential feedback is tough. I mean, David Chang is a great chef. I don't know if you know who David is. He's one of the world's most famous chefs. He wrote a book called Eat a Peach. It's a serious book, but the part about me is hilarious. It talks about me giving him feedback. It was so funny. It was like, who is this guy, right? Well, he's just not used to hearing it. When you're the king of everything, everybody's nice to you.
Not agree more. That's, I think, something that everyone that sees success falls into. And do you have any guidance? What are some ways to get out of this trap and the success delusion?
Well, a couple of thoughts. One is get confidential feedback. See, everyone I coach gets confidential feedback, and they'll tell you a lot of this is very hard to hear. Very hard to hear. One of the CEOs I coached said that his feedback session with me made going to the dentist to get a root canal feel like a happy moment in his life. Well, this can be hard to hear this stuff. And then after you get confidential feedback, talk about what you've learned, follow up with people on a regular basis, and we measure do people get better. And one of the things I talk about is don't add too much value. And one of the guys I coached, J.P. Garnier, was still GlaxoSmithKline, and he learned something as a CEO, a very wise man. I said, "What'd you learn from me when I was your coach that helped you the most?" He said, "What'd you learn about being a CEO?" I said, "First, what I learned about being a CEO is my suggestions become orders." He said, "If they're smart, they're orders, and if they're stupid, they're orders. So one of the orders are, they're not orders anyway." So I said, "What'd you learn from me?" Everyone listening, if you don't learn anything else on this little Zoom call, if you don't learn anything else, learn this. He said, "Before I speak, breathe and ask one question: is it worth it? Is it worth it?" And he said, as the CEO of this big company, half the time I have the discipline to stop and breathe and say, is it worth it? What do I decide? Am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. Well, this applies to our lives. This applies to our lives. You go home, you get in some stupid argument over nonsense with somebody you love. Breathe. Is it worth it? Is it worth me winning this stupid point? Why am I doing this? So if you learn nothing else but that, before you speak, breathe and ask, is it worth it? A lot of times that decision is going to be a lot smarter.
Those are great points and a great piece of knowledge to take away. I think it can often be hard to do that in the heat of the moment, right? So the ability to kind of take a step back is really valuable. And I imagine just a level of self-awareness is really key to be able to change too, and not fall into this delusion. I guess, what role do you think emotional intelligence plays in all of this?
Well, it has played historically a big role, but in the future, in the present and future, is playing a bigger role. Being able to manage our emotions, our emotional reactions, the impact these have on others is hugely important today. Over COVID, I spent 600 hours with my friend Mark Thompson with 60 amazing people, and they're not a secret who they were. Included people like head of the Rockefeller Foundation and the World Bank, and CEO of the Olympic Committee, and just all these amazing people. And one thing they learn is you just can't, you got to watch what you say, and you get emotional. You speak when you're angry, out of control. That goes out on social media. You die. Well, it's a new world out there. And more than ever, very important to be sensitive to what you say, your emotional reactions. Again, one of the things that I practice is called the daily question process. One of mine is, did I avoid speaking when angry or out of control every day? And I monitor my own behavior every day on this. By the way, it's good to do at work and it's good to do at home. Before you speak at home, breathe. Think about your own what emotion am I sending in front of my kids? One of the guys that I coached, I had a really breakthrough moment with him. He loves his kids, but he wasn't really very happy. And I really had a positive moment with him. I said, do you want your kids to be happy? He said, more than anything in the world. I said, do you believe in leadership by example? He said, of course. I said, guess what? You be happy, Dad. And that really hit him. He wanted his kid to be happy, but he's going to tell his kid how miserable he was all day. Bad role model here. You want your kid to be happy? Let the kid see you to be happy.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating. Just speaking a little bit more about emotional intelligence, something you speak a lot about is expressing gratitude. I also think this is really kind of one of the highest signs of emotional intelligence. I want our attendees to understand, where you were when you started your gratitude journey, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how that can show up in leadership. We're going to go ahead and play another clip from the video book that speaks to this gratitude piece.
Good.
A harrowing plane flight helped Goldsmith come to a realization.
All of a sudden, we realized the landing gear doesn't work. So the pilot goes down once, it doesn't work. Goes down a second time, it doesn't work. Goes down a third time, it doesn't work. So now we're circling around, and this is a small plane, waiting for the fuel to run out. So I guess when we land, I'll only be slightly charbroiled rather than completely charcoal. So I'm sitting there waiting for this fuel to run out. Well, does give you pause to think about life. Given the fact I'm figuring there's a high probability I'm going to be dead in a few minutes here. And I thought, what do I regret? All my regrets, what do I regret? And what I realized is so many people in my life who'd helped me. And my biggest regret is I didn't thank them enough.
Saying thank you is powerful. It can end a conversation. It can create closure. Most importantly, it can express gratitude.
I made a commitment. If this plane lands, I'm going to thank people. And, you know, obviously the plane landed. Obviously I didn't die. It worked on the 4th try. And now I really feel good about it. I worked so hard trying to thank people.
Goldsmith came up with an exercise to express gratitude. Make a list of the top 25 people who you owe thanks. Then ask yourself if you've told them how grateful you are. If you haven't, pause this video book and write them a thank you note. Go on, we'll wait.
Of course, we can't pause our conversation now to do that, but I do encourage everyone attending today, please make this list and write a thank you note after this fireside chat. Marshall, this is a very powerful moment in the video book. In your experience, how does practicing gratitude help leaders grow and develop? It's a great habit to practice for personal growth, but how does practicing gratitude relate to career development and career growth?
Well, in study after study has shown that providing positive recognition helps, or when deserved, providing positive recognition when it's deserved increases motivation, increases employee engagement, increases all kinds of things. And one of the things I point out is, what does it cost? It doesn't cost it doesn't cost some fortune. And, make a list of the most important people in your life. Make a list. And then I'll give you another very practical exercise. Make a list of the important people in your life. And then twice a week, once on Wednesday and once on Friday, ask, did anybody on this list do anything I should recognize? If they did, send them an email, voicemail, say thank you. If they did nothing, don't say anything. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a phony. One of my clients taught me that. He went from a 6th percentile to a 94th percentile in giving recognition in 1 year. That's all he did. So, you don't need to do that much. You need to do something, though, and you need to stick with it.
Absolutely. And is there a trap where you can kind of fall into giving gratitude too often, or sometimes when it's not deserved? How do you know when to draw the line of when it's warranted or not?
Well, I mean, the question is, what are you getting gratitude for? And again, one of the problems people have is playing favorites, and we talk about that in the book. When you're giving gratitude for people who suck up, it's not particularly useful. When you're giving gratitude for people doing a good job, it's very productive. So giving gratitude is great if you're giving gratitude for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And another kind of key focus in the book is the importance of embracing feedback and the follow-up. Could you explain this concept to the audience? You hinted at it earlier in the conversation. I guess, in what ways have you seen leaders transform when embracing feedback and the follow-up?
Well, everyone I coach gets confidential feedback. And then I have them pick what they want to improve. And if they're not the CEO needs to sign off. If they are the CEO, the board needs to sign off. And they then apologize for their mistakes. They talk to people about what they've learned, and they follow up on a regular basis. And we measure, do they get better? Well, the reality is leaders that get feedback and then practice something called feed forward, where they keep asking for ideas for the future and follow up, pretty much invariably get better. A positive case study is a great friend of mine. I got an email from him yesterday just saying thank you. Hubert Joly. Hubert was the CEO of Best Buy, totally turned the company around. They were going bankrupt, and he wrote a book about it again. This isn't confidential. He wrote a book called The Heart of Business. He talks about getting feedback. He talks about me. He talks about standing up in front of people and saying, look, I need you more than you need me. Help me. Well, what a great leader. Great point. You want everybody else to try to get better, Mr. and Ms. Boss? Let them watch you try to get better. Don't just sit there and preach at people. Let them watch you try to get better. Well, that is more important than any lecture you'll ever give.
Absolutely. And do you have kind of any advice when trying to think about how leaders should give feedback to employees. You mentioned confidential feedback a lot, but how do you kind of advise leaders to give, sometimes really difficult feedback to peers and employees?
Well, Peter Drucker taught me a great lesson. He said, every decision of life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision, make peace with that. So let us assume that you're my boss and I need to try to influence you. Well, it's very simple. In this case, I'm in sales and you're the customer. I treat you with respect. I sell what I can sell. I try to influence the decision. If I can, I do. If I cannot, I salute the flag and go make it work, assuming it's not immoral or unethical. I just go out and make it work. Well, great point. The decision maker makes the decision. We're here on earth to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart, not to prove we're right. And whoever has the power to make the decision makes the decision. You need influence as a person. You're a salesperson. They're a customer. Peter Drucker taught me these great lessons. Well, if I am the manager, I'll give people one technique for dealing with tough issues. You don't have to prove you're right. See, our instinct is, I have to prove I'm right and you're wrong. You don't have to do that. Let's assume I am the manager now. You want to do X, I think about it, and I decide to do Y. And I don't think X is a good idea. Well, I don't have to prove you're stupid. I don't have to point out you're wrong. What I can say is, you believe that X is the right answer. I've thought about this. And you're a very smart person. You've told me why you think it's right. In this case, I disagree. And what I want you to do is why for the following reasons. You say, well, I disagree. I think X is better. I say, I understand that. I understand you do that. We disagree. Here's what I want you to do. Then you say, oh, I think you're wrong. So, you know what? I'm the boss. Maybe I am. And by the way, if I'm not wrong this time, I'm going to be wrong sometime. I've thought about it. I respect you. I've made a decision. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. And here's how. And I want you to support this in the best way you can. As opposed to, let me point out in this feedback session why I am right and you are wrong. See, the reality is on any decision, you're not assuming you're not an idiot. Let's say there's an 80% chance my decision is better than yours. There's still a 20% chance your decision is better than mine. We don't know what the future is. We're both guessing here. Well, even if I make the quote right decision, there is a chance that your approach would have been better. I don't have to prove I'm better than you. I don't have to prove I'm superior to you. I can respect you and I still give you feedback and say, I want you to change this. I do want you to do this. I don't want you to do that, whatever, without acting like I'm a superior person who's talking down to you.
Absolutely. I think the ability to respectfully disagree versus kind of being definitively right or wrong, it's really valuable. I think we could spend a lot more time on feedback and the feed forward concept. But let's move on. For those of you so interested in this, please check out the video book. We dive really deep into this. Marshall, I want to move into our last section of discussion for today. So you talk about seeing this journey as a lifelong process. Leaders you mentor do this for the rest of their lives. They're always trying to improve. So I want to share with everyone some of your final rules for creating lasting behavioral change. We're going to learn a little bit more in this clip and then dive into a few more questions.
Okay. My mission is to help very successful leaders achieve positive, lasting change in their behavior.
Here are some final rules that will assist you in creating that lasting change. Pick the right thing to change.
A great example of working on the wrong thing, you see it every day at a golf course. Go to the driving range. People spend hour after hour after hour driving when that's only a small percentage of their game. You seldom see people working on the short game, which actually accounts for far more strokes. Why? Driving is easier. They feel macho. It's sometimes more fun. They get to hit the big boomer, as opposed to that tedious work around the green, which actually produces a better long-term change in your score.
There's no quick fix.
In our society, we've been barraged with this idea of the quick fix, the easy solution. You know what I've learned in my job? There isn't one. If people get better, they work day after day after day after day over time. That's how you get positive, real change.
Don't hide from the truth you need to hear.
Why do we hide from the truth that we need to hear? Well, the closer it gets to home, the more painful it can be. We don't ask because we don't want to hear the answer. We don't ask because the closer it is to our hearts, the harder it is to hear the answer. And the more important the feedback is, in many situations, the less likely we are to ask that question, how can I be better?
Thanks, Marshall. I think part of the reason your advice continues to stand the test of time is it's just really super practical. And I guess, since you wrote the book, have there been additional things you've kind of learned over time that have been really effective to drive kind of lasting behavioral change? Anything you would have kind of gone back and added to the book?
Yes, a couple of things. One, I wrote a new book since then called How Women Rise with Sally Helgeson. That might be an interesting one for you guys to do as a video book as well. It's #1 best-selling book for women in leadership in the world in the last probably 5 years. Hugely successful book. It was about 90% Sally and 10% me. But I'm very proud to be part of the book. By the way, no negative feedback from left-wing or right-wing politics, which for a book about women is unheard of. So it's been a huge success. One of the things we learned is the people I coach are really successful people. And the unique part of what got you here when we were there is talking about how to help successful people get better. There are other people that have some kind of different problems. For example, most of the mega successful people I work with, I have to teach them, don't promote yourself so much, don't win all the time. Well, sometimes dealing with people who aren't quite so successful at lower levels of the company, they need to promote themselves more. They have the opposite problem. And we talk about that in the book, How Women Rise, that sometimes you need to promote yourself even more. And the thing I now teach to people who need to promote themselves more is I ask them 3 questions. I said, number one, back to the Peter Drucker points, if you became more powerful and influential, would the world be worse off or better off? I invariably say better off. I say, 2, does trying to become more powerful, influential make you feel uncomfortable sometimes? Oh, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like it. I say, number 3, what's more important? Make the world a better place or be comfortable? Oh, you want to be comfortable, keep doing what you're doing. You want to make the world a better place? Get over it.
Yeah, Marshall, we actually have How Women Rise as a video book. So that's a perfect cue to the audience to watch that video book as well. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's multiple ways to kind of approach, for successful people to become more successful, and then for those that need more promotion to kind of get more awareness within their organizations. And looking ahead, I guess, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for leaders today? Has that kind of changed from when you initially wrote the book, or are you seeing pretty similar
Well,
challenges?
there are 5 trends that are going to be even more important in the future than they were in the past. One is global thinking. Leadership has become more and more global. I mean, if you look at the historical trend, leadership, we're in a cave. It wasn't very global. Then you're a little village, community, a state, whatever, and it gets more and more and more global. So global thinking is important. With that, cross-cultural appreciation has become much more important. How to lead people across cultures. The next thing is technological savvy. I've got my own AI bot now, inviting everybody to do it, marshallgoldsmith.ai. It's all free. Well, who would have thought I'd have a computer bot 2 years ago, right? Nobody. Well, leaders today need to understand how new technology impacts them in the world. I'm not a technologist, but I use technology. I always joke about this. I have an honorary Ph.D. in engineering. I'm not a real engineer. So I just have an honorary degree. It's not real. But I know enough about how my work is influenced by technology. What you're doing is involving technology, which I love, by the way. And then a couple of other things. More and more leadership is going to be more horizontal rather than vertical, across rather than down. And then finally, Peter Drucker again said the leader of the past knew how to tell, the leader of the future is going to know how to ask. Everything I teach in the book is not becoming less important, it's becoming much more important. When you manage knowledge workers, you can't tell them what to do and how to do it. You have to ask, listen, and learn.
It is really interesting. I'm sure that we are going to have some questions about AI and technology in the Q&A. So it's fascinating. Yeah, I'm also very curious. I know some people on our team have experienced the Marshall bot and said it was really good. So, encourage the audience to definitely experience that and check it out
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, check it out. MarshallGoldsmith.ai. It's all free too. And it's all free. So just go there. You can use it.
Amazing. And for all those trends, how can emerging leaders prepare themselves for, obviously there's a lot that goes into that 'cause there's 5 different trends, but maybe if we just want to talk about, cross, global management, and then also maybe for tech savvy, the first 2.
Well, I think the important thing is looking at your life as continuous learning experience. I'm spending in Nashville this upcoming weekend. I'm going to be with about 140 people. It's a program I'm donating to young high potential leaders in the future. And the point is, it doesn't stop. Very important point for younger leaders, new leaders. You're not going to get there. You're not going to go to this place where everything is perfect. It's no longer crazy anymore. The pace of change you're experiencing today, my friend Rob Nail taught me this. The pace of change you're experiencing today is the slowest pace of change you will ever experience for the rest of your life. I mean, it's not slowing down. It's only going to speed up. So what we need to learn in the future, even more than the past, is how to operate in a world of just incredibly rapid change and to realize you're in a constant learning mode because the world is constantly changing. And you can't just sit there and say, well, I'm going to coast this year. And coasting time is over.
That's very true. Yeah. And right now it's the rise of generative AI, right? And I guess what advice do you have for leaders as they grapple with these rapid changes in their industry and organization? Is there any specific preparation that you would recommend? Or I think there's kind of this balance where there's so much happening and there's so little time to invest in kind of learning and development. And so I guess how would you advise leaders on how to stay attuned and stay abreast of all of the important innovations versus and manage their time kind of properly?
Well, I think you need to set aside part of your life every week to do this, and it's very difficult. Let me tell you why. Everybody I work with has KPIs, they have numbers they have to hit, they have busy jobs, families, all kinds of things in life. To set aside time for the future is hard. And you need to make a discipline every week to say, how much time am I setting aside this week? Not just to hit today's number, but to focus on tomorrow's development. If you don't, it's going to catch up with you. And it's hard, not because people are stupid or mean or bad, or nobody's going to argue with the idea that I just said. It sounds sort of obvious. It's hard to do because we're so busy. People are just buried with stuff. And the other thing in the new world is, social media. You just need to learn to tune things out. Just don't do a lot of this stuff. Don't waste your time. I mean, the numbers on this are tragic. I mean, if you look at it, you know who PewDiePie is? Some Swedish guy, the sarcastic guy, plays video games. 29 billion views. I mean, that's insane. It's insane. There are only 8 billion people in the world. How many zillion hours are spent watching some guy play video games? I mean, to me, that's not even vicarious living. Vicarious living is playing a video game. Vicarious living squared is you're watching somebody else play a video game. You're not even playing a video game. I've come up with a new one called Vicarious Living Cubed. You're watching someone you kind of pretend to be a wrestler, but you're really watching someone else who's pretending to be a wrestler playing a video game about wrestling. And they're pretending to be an actor who's pretending to be a wrestler. My advice is don't do that. You want to have a great life, live your own life. Don't live all this vicarious living.
Right. I think that is very valuable advice in the age of social media, for sure. And focusing a little bit more on the HR and learning and development space, we have a lot of attendees that are leaders in HR and learning development and people. Right. What are some emerging trends that you see in this space that you think may shape the future of leadership development?
Positive, simple, focused, and fast. People have no time And one reason that my stuff has lasted a test of time is it's positive, simple, focused, and fast. I give people practical ideas they can take back and use now. They're not lost in some theory or abstraction or blah, 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 too much talk. The reality is, when I started in the training and development business, we used to do 5-day training programs. Those days are gone. There's nobody's doing 5-day training programs today. Those days are gone. I worked for McKinsey for years, teaching McKinsey partners 5-day training programs. People don't do 5-day training programs anymore. No, that doesn't happen anymore. It's too busy. Well, you really need to say positive, simple, focus, and fast, like you guys are. Use technology. Use technology, because if you just, everything is not going to be in person. You don't have that much time. People are busy. And you really need to just focus on things that deliver a practical message in a very short period of time, or they won't do it.
So, yeah, that's definitely, I think, in line with what we're seeing with a lot of our enterprise clients, where they say there's such little time that leaders and high potential employees have to commit to learning, that whatever content you do share has to be, really high quality, high impact, to leverage that time, and of course be positive and really kind of specific to what their needs are. So really appreciate that. And do you have any idea, anything else for HR and L&D leaders to how they should structure their programs to kind of be more valuable for their company's leadership, that you've seen to be successful in your own work?
Yeah, I do a lot of work on this area. And, to me, my area of expertise, a lot of it is coaching, which is incredibly popular right now. I mean, coaching, I was coached back before coaching was popular, before there was anything called coaching. And coaching is hugely popular, but it's how do you use the coaching? Really make sure that the coach you're getting fits the needs of the clients. Don't just do coaching to do coaching. Make sure, my area is, I don't coach everybody. I help very successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in behavior. That's all I do. I'm not an expert on strategy or marketing or other stuff like that. Well, make sure that the coach that you hire fits the needs of the client. And all that learning and development stuff today, you really need to focus on, why am I doing this? What does the client need? And how can we put together a program that's consistent with the client needs?
Thank you so much, Marshall, for spending time and sharing your thoughtful and very extensive leadership advice. We are now ready for Q&A. So
Okay.
I'm just going to pull up the questions
Now,
here.
before we start, I don't answer questions about politics. I don't give financial advice, and I don't give medical advice. So, and by the way, if I don't know the answer, I'll just say I don't know. So let's fire away.
Perfect. Will do. So the first one, how can I find my place as a wild card person or a neo generalist, someone that is, jack of all trades, but master of none?
Well, in a way, you need to become a master generalist. See, some of the great leaders I met, Frances Hesselbein, she was not a technical expert at anything, yet one of the greatest leaders who ever lived. Well, she understood the broad prospects of management and how to manage people. So when you say you're a generalist, you're going to need to specialize somewhat. You can't be an expert on all knowledge in the world, but within, let's say, the field of management, you learn a lot about different parts of management. And by the way, there's a big market for that. Let me contrast that with what I do. I'm a specialist. I have a very deep knowledge in a reasonably small area of expertise. I'm certainly not an expert at everything. That's what I do, though. I'm a world's expert at something. Well, if you want to be a journalist, it's okay. You need to be in a position where being a journalist is what the job requires. And in many executive jobs, that's what you do need. You do need somebody that understands a lot about a variety of different things, as opposed to a specialist who knows a lot about everything. You hopefully could be managing people who are specialists. So I wouldn't see that as a problem, especially if you go into management.
Thank you. And all right, one more here. So how can I overcome the objection of lacking direct people management experience in a large, very political, homogenous organization as a woman?
Oh, well, the first thing is okay, two or three parts of that question. The first part is the political part. Let's get back to Peter Drucker thing. It's not their job to buy, it's your job to sell. And decisions aren't made based on logic, rationality, or fairness. Decisions are made by decision makers. So you sit there and say, I'm going to influence people in this organization as best I can, when I can. If I can't, I can't. And ultimately, whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of a performance appraisal, that's the only one that's going to matter. That old person says you did the right thing, you did. That old person says you made a mistake, you did. You haven't impressed anybody else. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who are dying, got this question: what advice would you have? On the personal side, three themes. Theme number one, three words: be happy now. Not next week, not next month, not next year. The Great Western Disease: I will be happy when I get the money, status, BMW, condominium. Wrong. We all have the same win. Learning point from old people: be happy now. The years pass fast. Number two, friends and family. Never get so busy climbing the ladder of success we forget the people that love us. Big mistake. And number three, if you have a dream, go for it. You don't go for it when you're 40, you may not when you're 80. Business isn't much different. Life is short, have fun. Back to that one question. You don't like what you're doing and it's not going to change, figure out a way to get out. Don't be stupid about it. Just start planning to get out somehow. And then number two is do whatever you can do to help people. Look, the main reason to do all the stuff I teach has nothing to do with money or status or getting ahead. A lot of my clients do have money and status, so they do get ahead. That's what this is all about. Main reason to do this much deeper. The 95-year-old you help people is going to be proud of you because you did and disappointed if you don't. That's more important than all that money and status anyway. Final advice is go for it. World's changing. Do what you think is right. We seldom regret the risks we take and fail. We almost always regret the risks we fail to take. So finally, thank you so much for asking me to be here. Thank you so much for doing the video book. And again, best recognition I possibly get. I hope somebody out there have just a little bit better life. For me, that's good enough.
Thank you, Marshall. Wow, could not have, I think, ended this with more wisdom. Very grateful for your time, and thank you for joining. Two small housekeeping items, and then we'll wrap up here. So if you haven't done so, everyone that's in attendance, just check your registration confirmation email where you'll have complimentary access to the What Got You Here Won't Get You There video book. And just follow our LinkedIn page and social media about our monthly Fireside chats. Next up, we have Liz Wiseman, best-selling author of Multipliers and Impact Players. And Impact Players is launching very soon. And
by the way, Liz is a member of my 100 coach group, so I'm a big fan of hers.
Amazing. Yes, thank you. And if anyone in the audience is interested in learning more about Lit Video Books for Teams, how we can ignite engagement and micro learning in your organization, you and your learning development and HR team can trial Lit for free. So just go to our website, see where it says Teams, and enter your information to learn more. Most importantly here, thank you, Marshall. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And thanks everyone that was in attendance. Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Thank you.